I'm Trevor Shirley in Washington, where experts are warning about disinformation being spread by China about the coronavirus. I've got that story coming up.
I'm Raquel Martin in Washington. After a recent tweet from the president, Democratic lawmakers are rallying their support behind the nation's top epidemiologist, Dr. Fauci. I'll have that full story coming up. The coronavirus crisis has cut billions of dollars from the produce industry, but the Trump administration could soon provide some relief. I'm Jesse Tenor in Washington, and I'll have that story coming up.
When to reopen America. I'm Kelly Meyer reporting from Washington what lawmakers are saying about the decision.
I'm Morgan Wright in Washington. Coming up, how lawmakers are responding to a surge in gun sales during the coronavirus pandemic.
We've got to turn the page at some point.
Republican Florida Congressman Ross Spano hopes that time is near, as businesses in his district struggle to stay afloat.
I was a small business owner for 14 years, and so I understand the types of decisions these folks are making.
As business owners make those decisions, President Trump is weighing his own when to reopen the country.
I would say without question, it's the biggest decision I've ever had to make.
The president is creating a new council of doctors, business leaders, and lawmakers to help him with his choice. Republican Florida Congressman Dr. Neil Dunn happens to hold two of those titles.
I'd be honored to serve.
Dunn says he understands the impact of the virus. He tested positive for COVID-19 just days ago. He tells me he's feeling fine and only has mild symptoms. And Dunn says the country should begin to reopen where and when it can.
Going back to work where it's safe to go back to work.
President Trump's top health advisors have said relaxing social distancing guidelines too soon is risky.
There's no doubt you're going to see cases.
On Monday, the president said he has the final say, but Alabama Congresswoman Terry Sewell says she wants to see the timeline driven by data and experts.
That's why I think it's important that the governor, solicit information not only from our medium, small, and large businesses, our minority businesses, our women-owned businesses, but she also takes the very best advice we possibly can get from our healthcare professionals.
Sewell says the governor should have the final say in her state. Reporting in Washington, I'm Kelly Meyer.
Many of us in the scientific community believe that there will be another surge.
Congressman and physician Ami Bera says we may not be learning the lessons from coronavirus today that we'll need to help us prevent another major outbreak in the fall.
At that point, we have to have enough public health personnel, enough diagnostic testing.
Bera says the federal government must prepare for widespread testing now to avoid a major economic shutdown months down the road.
So we don't shut down entire communities, but rather if there's a neighborhood or a specific household that gets infected, we shut down that portion.
Short of testing all Americans, our ability to bring back this economy is going to be a very long process.
Congresswoman Jackie Spears says the country needs consistent antibody testing by the fall.
To have a better understanding of who is sick, who is asymptomatic, who has recovered, and who can go back to work.
Some lawmakers say we need to manufacture more items here in the United States. They say our long-term plan to prevent future outbreaks can't rely on foreign supply chains.
Knowing that this can come back, we're looking at our therapeutics and our vaccines.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy says the U.S. should manufacture medicines and medical and testing equipment on American soil. And he says the White House is taking testing and equipment shortages seriously.
I firmly believe the ingenuity of America that we will solve all this.
In Washington, I'm Joe Khalil.
I think it's very important to note a lot of misinformation out there targeted toward the American people.
Indiana Representative Andre Carson, a member of the House Intelligence Committee, wants Americans to be careful about COVID-19 information they see online.
Foreign actors, state actors have set up troll farms that deliberately spread misinformation to the American people.
And some foreign policy experts say China is attempting to reshape its role in the pandemic.
They are trying to push a specific narrative. China's the good guy, China's not the problem. And also, at the same time, to deflect criticism onto other countries.
The Heritage Foundation's Dean Chang, an expert on Chinese policy, says China's own numbers, from its economy to coronavirus deaths, defy common sense.
Often their claims are frankly outlandish, but people seem to want to believe it.
Chang says China uses government operatives to spread disinformation on social media within China, and also doesn't rule out those same agents posting online here in America.
So I think it is safe to say that there are at least some lurking in our social media.
Since 2016, some companies have tried to stop the spread of online disinformation.
I'm appreciative of YouTube for stepping up and tightening their search engine.
The U.S. Justice Department said last week it is also tracking disinformation campaigns by China as well as Russia. Reporting in Washington, I'm Trevor Shirley.
There's nothing you can equate this to, not in the suddenness of it.
When the coronavirus crisis forced restaurants and schools to close, America's fruit and vegetable growers lost nearly half of their business overnight.
To target a sector of the industry so broad-based like it did the food service side is unprecedented.
Robert Gunther with the United Fresh Produce Association says the closures have already resulted in a $5 billion loss.
With a product like ours, you've got to move it. Once it's harvested, it needs to be in the store within a week.
The disrupted supply chains are something industry experts like Cheryl Jewell with George Mason University say could create a domino effect as demand shifts from the food industry to grocery stores.
I think there's probably plenty. But the bigger concern, of course, is the financial stability of those smaller producers and even some of the large ones, of course, as well.
That's why the produce industry sent a plan to the U.S. Department of Agriculture asking for $5 billion to stabilize the market. More than 100 members of Congress have endorsed the short-term fix, and President Trump says help for the entire agriculture industry is on the way.
Secretary Perdue will be using all of the tools at his disposal to develop a program, and very quickly, of at least $16 billion to provide relief.
Gunther is hoping for an announcement this week as his industry inches closer to its expiration date. In Washington, I'm Jessie Tenor.
There is no reason that Americans need more guns at a time of COVID-19.
Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal is concerned growing anxiety during the pandemic is driving new gun sales.
If there is tension or contention, guns are more likely to prove deadly.
While the FBI reported more than 3 million background checks in the last month alone, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy says there's still a gap.
About 30% of all gun sales happen without a background check.
To make sure that number doesn't increase, Murphy and Blumenthal are among the lawmakers asking the FBI to ensure the National Instant Criminal Background Check system can keep up with surging gun sales.
You have a lot of folks who have serious criminal histories or serious histories of mental illness who are also going out and buying weapons.
My view is that retailers selling guns are not an essential service.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio says the decision to allow gun sales is made locally.
Obviously, that's conducted both at the federal and at the state level with our laws. And, in many places, these stores are now closed.
New York is one state that grouped gun sellers with other non-essential businesses it forced to close. But that decision already brought a lawsuit from the National Rifle Association.
With that, you're actually denying these law-abiding people of a constitutionally protected right.
The NRA says preventing gun sales puts even more people in jeopardy. Reporting in Washington, I'm Morgan Wright.
I don't know what the president's thinking.
Michigan Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell says she woke up Monday morning and saw the president in her Twitter feed.
It deeply concerned me that he would retweet what he did.
The president retweeted this post featuring the hashtag #FireFauci.
I think it's far too personal. I think that all of us should want to have the experts.
The retweet came just hours after Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top epidemiologist leading the charge against the coronavirus, made these comments.
You started mitigation earlier, you could have saved lives.
Dingell worked side by side with Fauci during the AIDS epidemic.
I've known him a long time. He doesn't react, he just stays calm, but he tells you the truth.
She and several Democratic lawmakers are now rallying behind him using the hashtag #SaveFauci, now trending on Twitter.
We need to be able to rely our decisions based on fact and science. Dr. Fauci will do that, and we need people like him.
The White House tells me they have no plans of firing Dr. Fauci, calling assertions ridiculous. But some Republicans still think the doctor should take a back seat. In an op-ed, Colorado Congressman Ken Buck blamed Fauci for the economic fallout that has caused millions to lose their jobs. Buck wrote Fauci, quote, should no longer be the primary voice at the table. Fauci has served under 6 U.S. presidents, and recent polls show most Americans approve of the job he's doing. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
I'm on my way to work. I have just had a very nice and cathartic dance party in my car, which is a good transition to work from home because I had a little bit of a stressful morning with my children, trying to get them set up for homeschool. I am a widow, so I don't have a partner to help me with them, and I don't want to send them to my in-laws or my parents because they're getting older and some of them have health conditions that might put them a little bit more at risk for COVID. And I am going to start my shift. Most of our beds are taken up by intubated patients, meaning patients who can't breathe on their own and who are on the ventilator. Almost everybody is on oxygen, and almost everybody is a COVID patient. We have a full ICU. We have every patient in here on a ventilator. Got a patient who's looks like he's having a lot of respiratory distress. He looks like he's breathing at like 40 a minute. He's got a non-rebreather on, but he looks really bad. So we're going to call respiratory down and we're going to intubate him. We're going to put him on a ventilator. I wanted to point out how we have our IVs set up so that our nurses can get some protection by only using medications and hanging things outside the room instead of having to go in every time they need to change something on the pole. Every patient is getting multiple medications. Some are getting blood transfusions. Everybody has coronavirus, but some people also have heart attacks at the same time. So I just needed to get out of the ED for a little bit. Sometimes you just got to step out for a second. You know, before this whole thing, we used to have a differential diagnosis of 21-year-old male with nausea and vomiting. What that could be, is it, you know, appendicitis or gastritis, pancreatitis or something like that. But now everybody, everywhere is a suspect for COVID. Well, my hospital day is over. It wasn't the worst day I've had. It's hard to think that some of your patients that you diagnosed today might not be here tomorrow when you come back for your shift. Tomorrow's going to be tough because I am going to homeschool all day and I work overnight. I hope I can get a nap in at some point, but like I said, it's just me, so it really depends.
It's a simple finger stick. Just take a drop or two of blood, and what we're looking for is antibodies that are developed if somebody had exposure to the coronavirus. It's not the coronavirus test itself, but if they had been exposed, they would develop antibodies as they're fighting it off. And we started with first responders, typically with the municipalities. Now for all the tests that we've done, they've all been negative against the antibodies. It's not unexpected. It's a very small portion of the U.S. population that is being exposed to and contracting the coronavirus. The testing result that's coming out of the company is showing a 97 to 98% accuracy against the clinical testing that they had done.
It's my understanding that in this crisis, the FDA is not requiring formal review of companies' serologic tests as a requirement. And that's a little different than what we see with other tests under ordinary times. So I think anybody who's being tested should make sure they understand that the test being performed is a quality test, and it could be complicated to make that determination.
It could be a very important tool to bridge this dangerous period until we have on the market a proper specific vaccine against coronavirus. This has been observed long time ago, already in the 30s. They mimic very well an infection. And at the same time, through a general boost of the immune response, they can protect also against other types of infections. The same concept, oral polio vaccine, has been also shown, just like BCG, to give more broad protection. Even if BCG would work perfectly well, this protection would be probably given for 2 or 3 years. And that would mean that this is only bridging the time until a specific vaccine can be developed.
Yeah, so the band is what we 3D print, and then the projector sheet is what we use for the actual face shield.
You know, we're doing this with gloves, and we're washing our hands and making sure everything is as clean as possible, and so then we pop the actual shield onto the band, and that's it. After today, we will have provided about 450 face shields among the 3 of us to people all over, not just in Northern Virginia. We know some people are taking them into DC, they're taking them to Maryland.
We're handing them out to troopers on the road, and then if we receive more, we're handing them out to local EMTs and fire departments. It's high quality material too, so we could reuse it, sanitize it, and it's not just one-time use. It's something that I have one in my car.
So it's usually something that we only have to buy like once a month, and we just buy it in bulk. That's not a thing right now. So we go through about 500 a week. So we ask for 500 face shields. Just thank you to everybody, no matter what you're doing. Whether you're helping to prevent transmission by staying at home and being responsible, or you're actively going out and helping by having these drop-off donations at safe distances and still practicing that social distancing.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the still